What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Quadcast, the show where we get real, get raw, and get loud about mental health, substance use, and the fight to take our lives back.
Each episode, we're cutting through the stigma, dropping knowledge, sharing stories, and bringing the heat with guests who have lived it and aren't afraid to talk about it.
So turn it up, lock in, and let's break barriers, spark change, and build a community that refuses to stay silent. You're tuned into the Quadcast, and let's get into it.
You can find us on Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, or email us. The Quadcast is always looking for new guests, whether you're individuals that have experienced it, you're in law enforcement, treatment programs, nurses, doctors, or anyone that just has something to say. Come share your story with us on mental health or substance abuse.
Warning, there's cussing in this video. If you don't like swear words, well, you're
watching the wrong damn show.
What advice would you give to new forensic nurses or nurses about protecting their mental health?
The best thing is to check yourself before you can check somebody else. You can't take care of somebody if you're not okay. If there's a situation that's too much for you or hits too close to home, you need to ask for the help. You need to step back, and it's okay to not be okay.
Sure, absolutely. We just have to be comfortable enough to say that we're not okay.
Yeah, and then if somebody else another advice is to not judge another person. Like if they're asking for the help, you can say, okay, I've got this. You take a step back.
Sure.
And like not to judge them.
That's where stigma comes from.
Yes.
What do you wish people understood about the emotional side of forensic nursing?
That it is hard. Like I said, when we have to see somebody, it could be their worst day of their life. You have to make sure that before anything else, one of our jobs is to make sure they're medically okay. And you have part of that is to make sure they're emotionally okay. Sure. And you have to, if at one point during the exam, you have to stop for this person to take a minute, then you stop. I always tell my patients, look, if at any point you're ready to be done and you don't want to relive this, because that's exactly what you're doing to a patient. When you're taking photographs, when you're doing a physical exam, when you're doing swabs, or even the history taking, you're asking them to tell exactly what happened so you can best help them. And that's reliving the trauma. You're traumatizing this patient multiple times, whether it's the history, and then again during the physical exam, and then during where you're getting swabs from or pelvic exam. Like it's constant.
Yeah, and not to set aside the amount of times that they're going to have to relive it through the whole process with court and other interviews and just the repetitiveness with law enforcement. It's just, there's so much that goes into it that people don't see and take into consideration. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for somebody.
It is. When I go out and do education, I've done a lot of like college classes because my area covers a couple colleges. So when I go out and educate on college students, it's kind of a twofold. It's like educating the college student and the young adult, and then also educating their future self. And I've done some EMS education too. And one of the things that I try to stress the most is minimal questions. Like if this patient's not actively bleeding or like medically dying right this second, leave the questions to a minimum, because you could just say, take the patient to the ER. Okay, they're here for a forensic exam. I haven't done anything, haven't touched them, or where you've touched them, where are your gloves, what you're doing. Because so law enforcement gets on scene first. They ask, and then EMS asks what's going on, and then the ED staff asks, and then forensics asks again, and then the investigator asks, and then you have to go to court. Like that already is like 5 or 6 people that you have to continuously tell the story to, and it's not fair to this patient, because by the 3rd or 4th person, they're like, I don't even want help. I'm done. Nobody believes me.
Do you think that would be some type of or a beneficial training for law enforcement to have as like a basic knowledge category of how to address things in that situation?
I think anybody, not just law enforcement. I think specifically, like, if you're the road officer taking questions, like, you need for your aspect as law enforcement, is the perpetrator still there? Do you know who the perpetrator is? Can we get some like information out to try to possibly catch this individual before anything else happens or before this person's gone ghost? And then leave it at that. And then if you call EMS, like, EMS needs to make sure this patient is like okay for the moment and like stable enough. And then you need to know where the resources are. Where's forensics? Because there's a couple different facilities in my area, and some of them don't have forensics. So if you send this patient to a facility that doesn't have forensics, then they have to tell that staff at that facility what happened, and then they have to tell the next facility where forensics is, and then they have to tell forensics. And I wish I could get people to understand, but sometimes this is the low high acuity calls. And like, I just want people to understand, like, if you were in that position, how many times would you want to tell before you're like, nope, I'm done? Like, you just want to quit reliving the trauma.
Sure. You just want to be done with it. You want to seclude yourself and get away from it.
Yep.
So, and from your experience in EMS, like, obviously you have protocols to go by.
Yep.
Is that something that you can transport that patient to a certain facility that has forensics over another one without too much red tape?
So for my department that I work for, we transport to 2 different facilities within our area. So if we realize that something like this has happened, we can give the patient the option to pick one facility over the other. And if it's like sexual assault, domestic violence, and they even think for the tiniest little bit they want to proceed, I will try to educate the patient, and I don't want to say push them, but provide the resource to go to the one facility versus the other. I know some other departments around my area only transport to one hospital, but if they realize that something has happened, then they have the ability to bypass other hospitals to get where they need to go for specialized care.
Yeah, that was just a curiosity to me, because obviously, I'm in Lewisburg. Our Greenbrier Valley is kind of, it's changed hands multiple times. I'm not even sure. I know that there was a forensic nurse there at one point. I don't know if there is one there now.
Yeah.
But we have other outlying hospitals, so that's something that I will check into further.
It's like a specialized. It's specialized. So it's almost like if you have a patient that you think needs a level 1 trauma center, but your trauma centers around you are only level 3. So you can bypass the level 3 to get to the level 1. Okay. It's a different specialty that's not provided at your hospital. So I know at least my department and a couple other departments around me, they have that option. But
I want to look into that further, because obviously in a small community that we're in up here, like, it's tight knit and very limited resources. So
I
would like to know how that's handled here.
And I will tell you, some of my facilities that are within my company has seen patients from West Virginia.
Sure.
Just because there's that's the closest one. Yeah. So we do see patients from West Virginia. I mean, I don't see a lot from North Carolina, but like, we can see them from all over. So it just depends on where that specialty is.
Gotcha. So we've talked a good bit about it, but if you could pick out one thing and one thing only about how mental health is addressed in the medical field, what would it be to change?
That one's a hard one. Let me think for a minute.
I'm all about the hard questions. You don't come here to get a break. I freaking wrote down questions all day yesterday.
The one thing to change, probably education, because education
towards mental health in patients or mental health in the career field.
Your own mental health in the career field. Because like I said, you can't help somebody if you're not okay. And teach these brand new baby nurses straight out of nursing school that don't go to a med surg floor, that come straight to the ER, or trauma nurses, like they go to the level 1 trauma center, which they see the worst of the worst: gunshots, stabbings, bad car wrecks, anything. Educate them.
I've been there.
Yeah, educate them that they need to take care of themselves first. Put the stigma out of your mind that, yes, you are a helper, but you can't be the helper if you need the help.
I wish I would have had somebody tell me that when I first came out of the police academy.
And
because I didn't do that.
And I think law enforcement and EMS and the medical field, like you said, it's hard because you are seen as the helper.
Yeah.
But like this is
honestly, like in the police academy or the fire service, like that stuff was never addressed really. And like it was mentioned because they had to,
right?
But it wasn't addressed properly. Like I honestly can't name a time at the police academy that mental health was ever a topic of discussion.
Yeah, and like part of it is put in law enforcement, because I know my husband and I have discussed this quite a bit, is put out of your mind that you signed up for this.
Sure.
But you didn't sign up for that. You signed up to be a helper.
Yeah.
But like I said, you can't be a helper unless you are okay. And that's, I think that's part of the hard part in any, like law enforcement, EMS, fire, medical field. Like because I've lived through all of it.
Sure.
I think you have to recognize it first. So
you have to be okay to recognize it. You have to understand that there's really not a stigma. There's a stigma, but there's really not.
Yeah. And I think
do you think that the stigma is a lot bigger than it actually is?
And I think there are a lot of people out there willing to help. They just don't recognize that you need the help, and you can't put it on somebody to say, oh, well, they should have seen the signs.
Well, most of it's leadership, and, we can start from a leadership role. And I did an episode about this on season 1, and it was failed leadership. And, most leaders just clock out whenever the shift's over. That's not how being a true leader works.
Yeah.
It's 24/7, 365 if you're in that role. And we could talk about that all day, but just as a coverall, as leadership and being a good leader. And I think if that was addressed more in some of these specific classes for like department heads and stuff, that there would be I'm not saying it's a major shift, but there would be some shift towards, hey, we're really fucking up here.
Yeah. And I
we're killing people.
I think part of the leadership is, yes, you have your like administrative roles to do, but remember where you came from. Yeah. And that's like one of my biggest philosophies that I try to live by when I'm on a truck or working in the ER. I have to remember I started out as a basic on the truck before I became a paramedic. I have to remember that I started out as a like basically a helper, a medic in the ER before I became a nurse.
Yeah.
You have to remember where you came from, because those are going to lead you back down to the basis of everything that you need.
All these babies coming into the field, I don't consider myself a baby, but I was at one point. You know, I went into law enforcement. I graduated the academy at 20 years old.
Yeah.
So I hadn't even experienced life yet. I couldn't even drink legally. But now, you know, I looked, you know, thought about it the other day. It's been 10 years since I went to the police academy, and I see all these new guys going into it. And I'm like, man, they really have no idea what they're about to come out and face. Like, especially with the world was different 8 years ago before I got hurt and I was on the road. Like, it was a totally different, you know, environment to work in. But now you've got so much racism, so much political driven madness that, you know, you have the transgender aspect, you have all of these different aspects that are only growing worse, and the resources are only necessarily dwindling.
Yeah.
So it makes it so much harder. Like, I wouldn't, now that I've been out of law enforcement for 8 years, I would not see myself going back into law enforcement.
Right. And it's, I mean, things have changed, and especially since COVID, and I mean, in the medical field, things are still.
And that's you know, COVID changed the whole footprint of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, you know, it changed the medical field. It changed literally everything.
Yeah.
It's so hard. We'll kind of get off your mental health now and kind of switch over for a little bit. But what mental health concerns do you mostly see in patients that you work with?
So the patients are, I think it goes back to the trauma, reliving the trauma. Like, they are, or in domestic situation, their mental health, they're concerned about how are they going to get out? How are they going to survive without this individual? Especially in domestics, individuals have worn the patients down for so long that they feel like they can't survive without them. So it's like, how are they going to restart? I mean,
and that's their intent, though.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is we give them the resources, but until they're ready, they can't get out of the situation. But like the sexual assaults, it's real hard for them to have to relive constantly, and they take the stigma of, well, maybe I shouldn't have done this, or maybe I shouldn't have worn that, and it's hard.
Sure. They think it's their fault that it happened to them.
Absolutely, and I will repeatedly, if I'm a broken record, tell my patient, this isn't your fault. You didn't ask for this. This was committed against you. Crime of opportunity. We do what we can.
So, how does trauma typically show up emotionally or behaviorally during a forensic exam?
In ways that you wouldn't expect. A lot of patients, we tell people, especially their support system, if they have one that comes with them, don't expect them to react the way you would expect. Don't expect this person to clam up in a corner and just like bawl and cry. Sure. People will, we call it inappropriate, but that's how their trauma system deals with it. People will be laughing about the situation. They will make jokes of it. That's the biggest thing I can think of, is because you don't expect this. You expect this patient to sit there and cry that something has happened.
Sure.
But they're going to sit there and laugh about the situation and just brush it off. Oh, it's no big deal. I'm just here to do this because somebody told me to, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not quite what happened, or what's going to happen after they leave my room.
Well, I mean, at that point, that life has been normal to them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, honestly, it's still normal to them at that point in time, because they're still living it.
Yeah, until this patient's ready to get out. But I mean, their support system.
But it's almost like you're bothering them at that point, because they don't really necessarily think it's wrong.
We give notebooks to our patients, and we tell them, if something comes up later down the road, write it down, something that you remember, something you want to get off your chest, because the way our brain works is little doors are shut, so that way they don't have to relive the trauma.
Got like a Rolodex.
Yep. There may be.
What about younger children that don't necessarily know how to express their emotions?
They get angry, they hit, they act out.
Well, they don't want to be there either, but
nope. And some of them may not realize what's going on.
Right.
So a lot of the questions we ask are, the parents look at us like we're crazy and like, why do you want to know that and why do you question it? But it's this patient's way of acting out. Are they 5 years old and potty trained? Have they regressed? Have they started pottying their pants? Have they started mimicking adults, started using inappropriate language, foul language? They're acting out whatever's happening to them. It's not what you think it is.
So at what point, and you mentioned the parents, at what point, like, is there a point in time where you only have time with the child?
Yes. So the way I work and the way I was taught and precepted to do it is we get a basic medical and social history out of our patients, or whether it's our patient, children, if they can answer the questions, they answer, like adolescents mainly. Mm-hmm. But whoever the caregiver is that is with the patient, because sometimes we get a lot of patients that don't come in with their parents because they are the alleged perpetrators.
Sure.
So whatever medical and social history we can get.
Ding.
Yeah, sorry, that was my text. We go and do that, and then we try to get the parents or the caregiver away from the child to try to get like the history of the actual events as to why they're there. And then we ask if they're age appropriate and can talk. We ask the parents to step out, and it's usually myself and an advocate, or if I need to, I'll pull an ER staff in, just so that way somebody can say I'm not like coaching the child or asking specific questions. And then I ask them, the way I practice is I ask one of two questions. Do you know why you're here at the hospital tonight? And has anybody ever done anything to you that made you feel comfortable or you didn't like? I ask open-ended questions. I don't ask yes or no. I don't ask anything further, like, has so-and-so done blah, blah, blah to you? I don't do that because I'm not coaching the child. Sure. That's not my job. My job is to make sure this patient is okay, and if I can, get evidence. There's another puzzle piece that goes into, like, around my area for this child. But if they don't get anything else out of that, then I don't push further. If the child wants to tell me a whole book, then I'll listen and write the whole book down.
Do you generally see like a shift in the children's behavior or emotional state whenever you remove the parent or guardian from that situation? Like, do they typically become more open, or?
It depends. It depends. Is that caregiver their security blanket?
Right.
Or is that caregiver the perpetrator?
Sure.
But a lot of it is the first, is that's their security blanket. They're in a strange room with strange people. They don't want the known person to leave.
Sure.
Excuse me. And then they get scared, and a lot of times I don't get anything out of children. They shut down, which is completely okay if that's how they want to handle their situation, because they may not know exactly why they're there or what's going on. They just know that there's strange people in here, and they don't things that are strange to them, doing the physical exam, asking questions, and they shut down, which is completely okay. We do what we can.
So how do patients' mental health needs differ at the time that you see them compared to later in their recovery? Do you have input on that?
I do. So a lot of times the patients we see the majority is almost immediately after something has happened. Their brain has not had time to process what's going on and what actually happened. As they go throughout their process, whether they do counseling or they just kind of deal with it on their own, they sit and stir in their own what's going on, the mental health declines. Because like I said, that little door is shut, so they or like, and then when they start bringing up everything and they speak to the investigator or counseling or going to court, it's reliving it. And when they've actually had time to process things and their brain is finally like woken up, like, hey, something has happened and it's not okay, then that's when they really start spiraling.
Sure.
And that's when we try to give them the resources that they could use. Like, hey, please don't deal with this on your own. And then we talk to the support system if they have one. Please, like, pay attention. Don't let this person stay alone for a little bit. Like, when their adrenaline finally wears off, it's almost like that dump. Everything dumps all at once.
Sure. So how do you personally build trust with patients in a short but intense interaction like that? Like, what are your...
So one of my biggest things is I start off first saying with their safety. Like, what you say in here is only on a need to know basis. You can make your decision. Do you want to tell me or do you not want to tell me? This is your show. You run this. What do you want to do? We give the options. We talk through what's going on, and then I give them the options. You can choose one, none, all of the above. I call it the a la carte menu. You can do what you want. This is your care. You've had your choices taken from you during this event. We're going to give it back to you. This door is protected by only a handful of people. No one else can get in. Like, we're for your safety, and this is you. What do you want to do? And I give them all the options. We discuss everything. And if at any point they're ready to stop and say, nope, I'm done, okay, then we're done. Like, that's simple as that. I'm not going any further. But I can't do anything unless you let me help you. Like, if you don't want to do anything at all, okay, here's your options. If it's domestic, you have any time to come back. If it's sexual, here's your time frame of when you can come back and get stuff. Sometimes they want to talk to their support system. Okay, I'll step out of the room and give you however long you want to talk through the options with your support system. We basically let them run the entire thing, and they make their own choices.
What types of mental health resources are typically offered to patients?
The biggest mental health is the advocacy. The center that we work with, like I said, they send somebody out with us on all types of cases that we see. A lot of people come in without support systems.
Sure.
It's because whether they're the one person that everybody else has been alienated from, so they can't bring that person in.
I was going to say, in that situation, they've probably been secluded away from their support system.
Mm-hmm. They don't have anybody else that they're afraid to tell anybody else. So we bring in somebody that is their support system.
Sure.
And maybe someone completely foreign to them. And if they decide, nope, they don't want anybody else there, then the advocacy can leave the resources and say, if you need us, call us. Here's our number. And then afterwards, depending on like where this individual lives and what happened and everything, the advocacy center can offer resources for them. The biggest one that they do is counseling, free to this individual, whether they need emergency shelter or different things. But they sit there and talk to them throughout the entire process. They're there with them. And then afterwards, they give them a phone number and say, at any point you call us if you need us. And then they'll have somebody follow up in a couple of days and give resources and counseling if they need to set up with it.
How do cultural or personal backgrounds affect how patients process trauma?
The biggest thing, and an example is if they've been taught to say, suck it up. And this is like, if you have a very backwoods style kind of relationship with a significant other, like this is how things are. This is how, like, women are just supposed to go through that, or men are supposed to suck it up and be strong. Like, they're never going to be victims of assaults. Like, it's right. Sexual or domestic. Like, just suck it up. It's okay. Like, this is how it's meant to be. This is how it's always been. Like, that cultural can weigh a huge part. And I do see men that have been victims of domestic and sexual assault. So it's not out of the ordinary. It's
That
very
does
low acuity.
happen.
Yeah, we don't see it a lot, but we do.
Yeah. I mean, that, from a law enforcement perspective too, like going into domestic violence situations, you have to have an open mind that it's not always the man towards the female.
Yep.
It's not always like that.
Yep.
What gaps do you see in mental health care for forensic patients?
The continuation of care, I think, is the biggest thing.
So follow-up care?
We do certain follow-up care within my department. The advocacy center does follow-up, but we usually send these patients home and then let them have a couple days to process. And then after that, sometimes we can't reach patients. It's up to, like, they don't want to answer the phone or their phone is not valid. I think it's up to them to make the decision from once they leave our room. We can only give them the resources.
Sure.
And if they don't want the help after that, then nothing we can do.
So this is kind of a repetitive one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. But how can healthcare systems better support patients' psychological recovery?
I think to support the recovery is to encourage on the front end. So encourage them to have a support system. If they're there without somebody, is there somebody we can call to be here with you while we do this? So that way they at least have somebody that knows what's going on. So that way they don't fall into a crack afterwards, I guess is the right way to say it.
If they didn't have anybody that they could call, if they were in that bad, that have been that secluded away from any of their family or whatever, who steps in at that point? The advocate?
The advocate will step in and help at one point. And then if they need further after that, it depends on how bad the mental health is. Well, we can talk to the provider about seeing them about getting them a mental health assessment in the ER and treat that. And then we have two different departments that we work with within my facility. Can they offer resources? Because they'll have a wider selection of resources that we can do. So I think to help on the back end is to start on the front end.
Sure. So in your experience, what makes the biggest difference in a patient's emotional healing?
That's kind of hard because we don't see them long enough to have their emotional healing. But I think to encourage on the front end that we believe them, something has happened. Although I can't definitively say what, I believe them that something has happened.
Sure.
And you start with that person, the first person to say, I believe them, which hopefully is the first person they come in contact, whether it's the hospital staff or someone on scene,
sure.
EMS or law enforcement. We encourage to say, we believe you. How can we help you? Here's what we're going to do. And you take your pick. But we still want to give you all these resources.
Sure. What do you wish the public understood about patients' mental health after forensic care?
The public is hard because a lot of times the public doesn't know we exist.
The public is the downfall of most everything.
Yeah, that's the problem is like a lot of people don't know what we do specifically. We can educate them on these resources, but like I said, it's an a la carte menu, so no two patients are the exact same. Right. So I can go out and educate law enforcement, EMS, fire, other medical facilities that here's what we do, but they're not going to remember everything that we do because they can pick one or none or some. So the public is, I think the biggest thing is to know that we exist and we can help them. Sure. Like within my department, within forensics.
How does addressing mental health impact a patient's overall healing process?
I think the mental health is the majority of the healing. The physical injuries can heal fairly quickly, depending on where injuries occur, but the mental health is the invisible scars that's been said before. Those
that's the lasting effect.
Yes, what you really need to take care of. So get the resources, get the counseling, the support system. I think you have to be okay with asking for the help in order to receive it. They're out there and they're willing to help. You just have to be able to ask.
Sure.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Quadcast.
Remember, breaking stigma doesn't stop when the episode ends. We're building a movement, and you're a part of it. Stay strong, stay aware, and stay connected.
This is the Quadcast, signing out.